Hey, whole Bible readers, it's week 24, and we're going to go through quite a number of transitions in this week. First of all, we're going to wrap up the book of Proverbs. Famously, we will read about the virtuous woman of Proverbs 31. Amazing person. Lots that could be said there. I will mention this. If you read that and find that a really intimidating, overwhelming perspective about a woman, I would say think about everything that you've read in Proverbs. Proverbs is very overwhelming. One of the things it points out to us is it's not easy to live a life of wisdom. And so we're going to need other resources to kind of put that together and understand the larger picture that is involved here. But at the same time, we recognize as we are being given the ideal, we're not told if this is the standard, all y'all are failures. We're being told there's a lot that is there that we can do if we appropriate God's wisdom. But in our weakness, we find our solace, our strength, our comfort, our support in God himself, as Proverbs reminds us at other places. It's better to have a quiet house with simple food, Proverbs says, than a house full of good meat with rancor. All right, let's talk about Ecclesiastes because it's kind of the anti-Proverbs, as it were. It's a sort of a balancing act with Proverbs. Life is fleeting, Proverbs said. You can't hold on to it. And so don't build a life of wisdom in pursuing the good life because ultimately any life is short, it's unpredictable, it's impossible to grab and hold on to. It keeps us from thinking Proverbs is just a formula of secular success. So at the end of the book it says pursue God because that is all that matters. Now that doesn't guarantee a good long life. Hey, we read Job, didn't we? We see how unpredictable life is and how inscrutable God's governance of the world is. But God is all there is. You can't control what is going on, but you can trust God. You can receive his simple gifts and place yourself in his hands before it's too late. And I've got to say, every year I relate more and more to the description of old age that's given at the end of Ecclesiastes. God will make things right. Then we go to the Song of Songs. One of the interesting things about the Song of Songs is that in Rabbinic Judaism, there's, at least in some circles, you weren't permitted to read this until you were 30 years old. This is love poetry, and it is parallel to some other love poetry from the ancient Near East. It expresses the desire that exists between a young woman and the young man to whom she is betrothed, and it's very vivid. It is very erotic. It is in that sense a celebration of desire and of sexuality and of marriage. But notice especially the garden imagery that is in this, because it seems like an added bonus so that we're reminded of Eden. And there's a warning here as well at the end of the book. Love is as strong as death. If you don't handle this right, it can kill you. Okay, so interesting book. We'll spend a couple of days reading this. Then we're going to shift for a while to the exilic prophets and some big honking books here. First, we will deal with Jeremiah, and then we'll deal with Ezekiel. These are the prophets who are active at the time that Judah is approaching its exile, and in Ezekiel's case, just as it has gone into exile under the Babylonians. Now, these guys have a terrible job. Their message is despair and darkness and condemnation and the exposure of hypocrisy. But it's also about hope because they will remind us that God doesn't let evil reign forever. So Jeremiah is going to have a particularly hard lot, saying the exile is coming and you need to repent. But listen, even if you do repent, the exile is still coming. It is too late to reverse this. God has set the events in motion that will lead to the judgment on our people for our generations and generations of rebellion against him. But that means even people like me, Jeremiah says, I'm going to suffer in the middle of this, even though I'm not technically under God's judgment. I'm in solidarity with my people, and I mourn that. But beyond that tragedy, God will restore the nation by the branch of David. There's going to be a little echo of some stuff that we read in Isaiah in that. So Jeremiah is going to show us how a prophet could both proclaim God's righteous judgment on his own people and mourn the judgment that comes on his people and experience the events of that judgment himself, though he is not personally under judgment. He suffers with his sinful people in that regard. amazing book. Among the other things you can do, go on the internet and look for the famous paintings of Jeremiah. There's one by Michelangelo on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, another beautiful painting that was done by Rembrandt. Just a bit of enrichment in your reading. God bless you in all of your biblical endeavors.